Welcome back, Jake. How are you doing?
Oh, it's a day in paradise. Spring's here. We got some light April showers. Supposedly they bring May flowers, unless you're in South Dakota and you get a May blizzard.
Oh yeah,
that's also still likely and still possible. But no, it's a good day.
A lot has changed. So if people don't know, this is what. So look, Jake, you're a pastor, you're a runner, an author. But what's next?
Well, I'm also a professor. I'm teaching New Testament this semester at USD as an adjunct professor.
Too.
Thank you. So the second time I've done that. So that's awesome. And we are also, I don't know if there's a title for this, but I'm pastor of Resilient Church. But one of our other exciting updates is that we are launching the Resilient Community Center this summer. So there is about 2,900 square feet of unfinished space in the Pizza Ranch building. Because, for those who don't know, we worship on Sunday mornings in the Dakota Center. It's that event hall in the back half of Pizza Ranch. So that's where we're at on Sunday mornings. But that's really the only place where we're at. If you want to find us, you need to come to the Dakota Center between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. on a Sunday morning. Otherwise, we're kind of more like a food truck that just pops up and goes around. We're a portable church in that way. So the next step for us is to become more permanent, and we're partnering with Pizza Ranch to finish out this 2,900 square feet of unfinished space. That's just north of the restaurant part, and that's going to give us a little section for offices, but we're going to have it just open as an open concept space for people to hang out, for students to study, for people to have game nights or baby showers or birthday parties, and just for it to be another third space for the community to hang out. So we're really excited to roll that out. That's going to be awesome. Again, coming around this summer with a launch in the fall. So we're spearheading that campaign right now. And I'm most recently a dad of 3 now. So we just had our third kid 2 months ago.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, snap.
So 2 girls and a boy. So we're mixing it up with Beckett this time around. So
whoa, a lot has changed.
A lot's going on.
That is great. Funny enough, so me and Myra, actually maybe it's just me. Myra's always wanted more kids, and I've been more like hesitant, mostly because I am scared. But lately, I've been like, maybe you should have some more, since we're moving in. Well, hopefully we're getting that housing situation. And over this past year, Jake, I've been thinking, like, you know what I would love to have? If I had like twin boys. If we're going to have a lot, might as well just have them all at the same time. Like,
yes.
One thing Victoria, she doesn't like. She says she wants a baby sister. And I was like, hey, imagine if you had like a bunch of baby brothers. She's like, no.
No, that's even worse.
But it's been great. I'm loving it. Oh, you know what I want to say too? I want to thank you, Mason and Isaiah, because you know how we used to do that running stuff?
Yeah.
So ever since, what was it, like last year in the winter or fall, I kept going. So almost every week I've been running outside.
Let's go.
Even when it's been like below whatever, dude, I would do it.
You're intense. I can't even do that anymore.
I was the one complaining about the cold all the time.
Wow, you have now surpassed me. You have now become the master.
Really?
I wimped out this winter. Anything below 30 degrees, I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. And then we had a kid and we're like, nah, I'm still not doing it. So I got out this morning, ran a little bit in the rain for 1 mile. So I'll take that as a win.
Okay, no, I've been doing it. And I don't know why. Ever since after that, I'm like, no, I got to keep going. Of course, I'm not like fast like them, but I do just the 4 mile thing on my pace and I feel great.
That's awesome.
So yeah, every week, even
good for you, Jose.
And it sucks. In the like, I've seen there's been one time where it's like, I swear it was like negative something, and then there was a wind chill, and I'm like, am I gonna do it? Yes, I am gonna do it. But I'm prepared and everything. And the first mile is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, everything's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just gotta
you just gotta get started.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's been great. But enough about me, because this is about you. So, funny enough, is this your first book, or you've done other stuff?
This is my first book.
Yeah, tell me about it. What made you want to do it? If people want to know, it's called You Need Friends. And I've been so excited when you told me about it. Usually I'm not excited about a book, but I don't know. It's because I know you, and I'm like, you know what? Let me read it. Because I was gonna go in like just not reading anything, but I'm like, no, I gotta get something. But what made you want to?
Write a book about this. Yes. So just to reiterate what Jose already said, the title is You Need Friends, Reclaim Your God-Given Design for Community, and Remedy Your Loneliness for Good. And this all really started ever since when I was in high school, growing up in the church and in youth group. I just remember always having a radar for people who are on the fringes. One of my top 5 strengths on Strengths Quest, if you've taken any of those personality tests before, is an includer. I want to make sure people are a part of what's going on. So if there's anyone who's just kind of on the fringes or is by themselves, I'm always prone to talk to them, bring them into the group, make sure everyone's included and stuff. That's just my heartbeat. That's just how I'm wired. And I've always just been one of the most extroverted people you can meet. I love friends. I love people. So that's just a large part of how I'm wired. But when I was in my first semester of my master's program, so this was fall of 2015, I stumbled upon 2 different topics in that semester. And one topic was just this idea that America was undergoing a loneliness epidemic. This was in 2015. This was 5 years before the pandemic. And I feel like even now talking about just the high rates of loneliness in our culture is more mainstream. This was 10 years before that, right? So that just struck me because, again, as a guy who's wired for friendship, I'm like, how could so many people be this lonely? It's nuts. So that was the first thing. I'm like, wow, there's clearly an issue here. But then the second topic I stumbled upon was this concept called spiritual friendship. So spiritual friendship is kind of a long lost Christian doctrine and practice that you see throughout church history, starting as early as the 3rd century and going all the way up, through the 12th and 13th century. But the main guy who wrote about this topic, his name was Saint Alred. He was a monk from the 12th century or the early 1100s from Old England, basically. And he wrote this little treatise. It's this little book called Spiritual Friendship that was the most beautiful articulation of the most basic relationship we can have with other human beings. Just how we can be friends with God and how we can be friends with others when they share that mutual pursuit of Jesus. It just captivated me. And I had this crazy thought. How could the local church remedy our nation's loneliness epidemic through the rediscovery of spiritual friendship? And I'm like, that makes a great master's thesis, right? So I did that. I finished my master's, dug deeply into it. But I knew this wasn't just meant to be a master's thesis. There is something more here. So I went on to publish blogs about the topics. I went on to write a number of sermons over it, which is just kind of what you do as a pastor. But I gave some keynote presentations over it. And it most recently culminated with me finishing my doctorate of ministry over this topic, a 6-year research project basically about how loneliness can be remedied through the practice of spiritual friendship among young adults between the ages of 18 to 24 was what my dissertation was over. And praise God, that's done. Finished that this last August. But the end goal of almost 10 years of research was to eventually get this book out that we now have in our hands, that just released last week, actually, to the public, specifically outlining all of the things from what is loneliness and how does it bring wear and tear on our minds, bodies, and souls? What are the benefits of community and friendship? What does it do to our psyches and our bodies and our souls? What are some of the cultural issues for why people, and especially young adults, are so lonely? And of course, then what is spiritual friendship and how can we practice it in a way that makes us feel more connected with God and with others? So that's essentially what the book covers.
If you are enjoying this and want to be a guest or sponsor, email me at vermillionunplugged@gmail.com. One of the things when I was reading it before, I would have never thought loneliness was a problem until I started, when I was reading it, and then I started analyzing some of my different phases of life. And I'm like, oh, snap. No, that stuff it does. You have to have people or friends or I'll give you one example. And it's actually more recent here in South Dakota when we came up here in 2020. It was during that COVID stuff. Me, Myra, and Victoria came up here. And, there wasn't that much. A lot of stuff was closed and you couldn't interact too much. So it was just us. And, at first, I think it's fine. But then there was no we didn't have a community. Still, we were still new to everything. And then that's when, Heidi, Nathan DeVries invited us to Hillside. And then for me, it was new, especially going on. Now we go all the time. But having that, a community at a church, that was brand new to me. Because first of all, I was like, why are these people trying to talk to me? Because when I was younger, I would go to, I grew up Catholic. We just go on Sundays and that's it.
Yeah.
but I never had like a community aspect. And now throughout these years, actually, I'm gonna say a bunch of my friends and best friends are from church, especially because it's not just, oh yeah, we go on Sundays and after service we talk. No, actually we see each other, or it could be in community groups if we're neighbors, or if we do a project, or even just hanging out. One thing, like recently this past year, that we're having this like situation going on, and I've been so surprised, especially at church, all the people willing to help us. And it caught my eye. I was like, but why? But yeah, we're all friends, and it's a community. I'm like, oh, I'm not. So I swear, Jake, because I might tell you about the problem later on, but it was like it's a big problem or big situation, and I was like, man, dude, with all these people, and I said to myself, I'm not alone. So I'm like, wow. It's one of those things that just caught my eye, just especially being part of a church.
For sure. Yeah, the local church is one of the few institutions out there where one of the main end goals of it is to develop friendship and community. Because a lot of times I think community and friendships are a byproduct of some of the other things. Like you go to your workplace specifically to do your job and stuff, and maybe you develop friendships through that, right? Or you have extracurricular activities, frisbee golf, right? Where the main thing that drives you there is frisbee golf, but you develop friends there. One of the main goals of being a part of a local body of other believers is to develop that sense of friendship and community. Some churches are way better at it than others, but I think that's a really unique demographic of religious institutions. And actually, there are studies that show that people who are a part, who are active in their faith, is not just Christianity. I mean, this is across the board. If you are a part of a worshiping community, your rates of loneliness go down. And I think there's just something unique about that shared experience of God, but also just what community is inherent to religious beliefs. And so I think that just really helps remedies feelings of loneliness in that way.
One thing I do want you to explain, and it's like right in the beginning of your book, because I was wondering, I was like, well, why can't humans be like alone? Why do we have to have, that urge? Because you can even see it, like if you isolate someone, they'll go nuts sometimes.
Yeah.
But why do we have to, have that, I don't know, friend circle? Why do we have to be with like people?
For sure. Yeah. Because solitary confinement, that's the worst of punishments, because you literally go insane by being deprived of people, and I'll go on to say that there's a difference between being lonely and being alone, because everybody needs seasons and times where we need to be alone, right? Sure. Because some people are the most connected when they're alone, but you put them in a crowd and they feel instantly lonely, but there's still all around though, like we can't be isolated for too long. We can't be disconnected from people for too long, or else we start having all these senses. And there's a lot of different psychological, biological reasons out there that say why we are a social gregarious species, where we're just designed best to work with others. I mean, you look through ancient history and all of our ancestors, where we always traveled in tribes and all those things. Like we've always existed as units. But from my perspective as a pastor, I believe in God, specifically Jesus, and that God created us as kind of the penultimate example, his magnum opus, you could say, of creation, in that he created us in his image. And what that means is that there are parts about us that reflect God's nature. Well, one of the parts of God's nature is that he himself is a community of three persons, right? Yeah. He is one God in three persons, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, who live in such perfect community. He seems as if he is one God, but three persons, not three separate parts. And they are so perfectly lovingly submitting to one another that it just creates this cohesive thing, right? So when he creates Adam and Eve in Genesis chapter 2, he specifically looks at Adam. He makes Adam first, and he says, it is not good for the man to be alone. And he immediately gets to trying to find that person who can come alongside him and live this life with him. And all the animals fell short, wasn't like it until he created Eve, right? When Adam then says, at last, this one is bone for my bone and flesh for my flesh, when he looks at Eve. And it was in that instance that Adam didn't become a human until God created Eve. To be a human person literally means to exist in community with others. You cannot be somebody by yourself without that connection. If you do, you go insane, right? We falter, and all these other issues come up. So I really take it from that theological standpoint, and then, you know, then there's so many other stats and effects that come with loneliness versus friendship, right? So if you are lonely and isolated for extended periods of time to where you're experiencing chronic loneliness, you're more likely to experience increased feelings of depression, anxiety, irritability, anger. You're more likely to have addictions and other relational disorders. The likelihood of having heart disease goes up, dementia goes up. It lessens your sleep quality, which impacts your immune system. And all around, like deaths of despair, like suicide, almost always have loneliness attached beneath it, you know? And so chances are very good that if people are experiencing high rates of mental health issues, chances are very good that they're disconnected. And I've even heard it say that a lot of counselors who work with people in their mental health struggles say that they would be out of a job if people just had more good friends.
Oh, really?
Yes, because then the inverse is also true. The power of having good, significant community and friendships in your life boosts your immune system. It makes you feel happier and gives you a greater sense of purpose with your life. Our friendships even determine things like how good we feel, how and what we think, what we value, how much money we make. Because think about it. If you are in connection with good friends who boost you up, who give you a sense of purpose, and you're feeling happy in the best version of yourself, you're going to be a better person to be around with a better work ethic that will get noticed by your peers and will get noticed by your workers. And you will inevitably live a life that has a stronger work ethic that will get you those promotions and help you to earn more money. It even impacts how our kids do in school. Your friends, Jose, impact how you live your life in such a powerful way of how you raise your kids and how they ultimately do in school. Like it bears that profound of an impact on who we are as people and our health from a physical standpoint and even an emotional standpoint, and especially spiritually too. Even to the point where, like, one of my favorite points I make in the book is that you are who you're with. So you are more likely to become like the people you surround yourselves with. So healthy people tend to be around a lot of other healthy people. People with broken marriages and on the brink of divorce tend to be around others who have broken marriages and divorces. And we kind of almost infuse each other with the same principles. Like, I never once said oofta to describe anything until I moved out here to South Dakota, and I was around a lot of people who said the same things, you know? So, yeah, we are formed by those we are with. And if we can really especially be aware of, like, wow, loneliness bears this much detrimental effects on our minds and bodies and souls, and friendship is this beneficial, man, then we need to maybe start prioritizing friendship as one of our main drivers for our lives.
No,
So,
you are right. Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, throughout these years, the friends that I've made, I don't know if it's them influencing me, but it's actually in a good way. Like, you know, because a lot of them, my friends, they already have kids like me. You know, I want my kids to kind of be similar. I want to be, you know, a good parent, or, you know, have a good marriage, and we're all positive. And especially like, I swear, Jake, before I would have, if I didn't, I'm gonna say, if I wasn't here and if I didn't have the friends that I made, depending on what situation I was in, I think I would have reacted differently.
Yeah.
I would have been like more, for example, angry or more negative or this and that. But now, you know, the positivity, or they gave me a different way of, or a different perspective on some things. And I'm actually taking it, because before, I think, I'll be honest, I think more, I was more selfish, and I would have reacted completely different with different situations. But now I have I guess, yeah, the friends that I have now, they kind of, you get influence.
Mhm.
And I think everyone's been great. I'm telling you, everyone's great. And my bad. And another thing, this is what I love. There's these 2 chapters, and it's I don't need anyone else, and I don't want anyone else. And before, so this is the problem that, I don't know, it's not really a problem. Something that's different, especially in the church. It was, because I would have thought, like, it's more like, oh, me, I can do this, or I can do this, or I don't need help, or I don't need this, this. But it's something different. Like, no, it's not just you, especially that part. Like, I think before I would be like, no, I don't need help, or I don't need anyone. But kind of think, you kind of understand what I'm saying?
Yes. I'd love to expound on that.
Yeah.
The chapters 3 and 4 in the book. Chapter 3 is called I Don't Need Anyone Else. And it talks about our cultural value of individualism in the United States and how that impacts our loneliness epidemic.
Yes.
In chapter 4, I Don't Want Anyone Else is talking about our isolationism, our cultural value of isolationism in the United States and how that's fueling our loneliness epidemic. So starting with individualism, it is kind of that declaration like, I don't need anyone else. I got this. I can pull myself up by my bootstraps. I can just chase the American dream. Nothing standing in my way. Let's make it happen. And now hear me. There's so many benefits and joys of living in an individualistic culture like the United States. That's awesome. It gives us, so many opportunities for us to make our way and things like that, which is great. But it also has its downfalls because I compare individualistic cultures with collectivist cultures, where the majority of the world continues to be collectivist and always has been collectivist, as opposed to the United States and Europe, which is more individualist, right? So collectivist cultures are specifically formed around this idea that the group comes first. Everything you do is to benefit the group you belong to, and the primary group you belong to is your family, but that also includes your city, your community, maybe your nation, depending on what that looks like. And the whole idea that we are to be kicked out of our house by age 18 to go make our own living and you go pursue you, that is not how collectivist cultures work. Collectivist cultures, once when you come of age, you're sticking around to help the family. You lay down your desires to help the group, and they are just so much more relationally connected. So you've come over here to the individualistic culture that is the United States, and when it plays out to its extremes of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you make your own way, that can naturally translate into this idea that I don't need anyone else to help me get what I want. In fact, friendships are ultimately for my own personal gain and my own personal benefit. And in an individualistic culture, people can become products to consume. Friendships are just a means to an end to help me achieve my desires, help me feel better. And if I have a bad experience with this person or with this friendship, I can just give it a 1-star review on Amazon, 2 thumbs way down, and you can return the product and move on. In other words, we leave the friendship when it gets uncomfortable, or especially if I start getting comfortable and uncomfortable and I don't want to reveal my weaknesses, maybe you leave the friendship, or at the very least, we are afraid to confess and talk about the hard things. We're afraid to say we need friends. We're afraid to say, I'm struggling with this. Please help me. So we keep it covered. And one of the points I say is loneliness isn't just being isolated from people, physically isolated, or living a friendless life. I think that's what we think. Loneliness ensues when you don't have anybody in your life. But that's not necessarily true, because from my research, I've also found that loneliness can also incur when the people around you don't understand you, when you feel disconnected even from maybe your spouse doesn't fully understand part of your life, or your friends just kind of kick around the fun surface level things at work, but they don't know what's really going on. And you're like, man, I wish these people just knew. I wish these people just got me in this way. You have friends, but do they know you, Jose? Do they know me as Jake, right? And so if we don't feel like we're fully known and seen in that way, then we might feel lonely and isolated, even from that emotional standpoint. And so it's that whole idea, like, yes, you need friends and you need to go there into the deepest parts of yourself that can help cultivate that stronger sense of intimacy.
Yeah, I agree. Especially having that even you got friends, but there's also that like how you were saying, like there's that select circle, like there's
strong core. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One thing that I don't know, it's not struggling, but I know me and Myra, we're, she's my wife, very close. I'll talk about anything or everything. But there's some topics that it was that like she just doesn't understand me. I don't know if it's because it's a guy thing, but I could go to like one of my closest, friends who's a guy. And then there's that, the thing you're saying, like they understand me, or if there's this other situation, or if I want to express something, like, there's that person that will understand what you're going through. I'm not saying, your spouse can't be a friend. Of course, same thing, having a spouse. Because before Jake, I always thought that I didn't need a wife or a spouse at all. I was like, no, I don't need one. So that's why I was kind of hesitant before on marrying Myra. It took me 10 years. 10 years? I've known her since 2011.
You kept her waiting that long.
Yeah, huh? I've known her since 2011, August 2011. And then I married her April 20. Oh, did I forget? April 26th.
No.
I mean, March 26th.
No.
March 26th of 2021. So yeah, it took a long time, but it was that part where I was like, no, I don't need anyone. I don't. But now, especially talking about having, a spouse. Yeah. If I didn't, well, it would just be me. It'll just be me by myself.
Yeah.
But
yeah. The declaration of I don't need anyone else is just masking your insecurity. Truly. Because we all need people. We all need friends. Literally, that's what it means. Like, we are designed to have friends and community. But anybody who says, nah, I don't need that. Nah, that's not for me. You're putting on a front that you're stronger than you really are. Because actually, strength comes not from rugged independence and individualism. Strength comes from interdependence, relying on others to help us in our weakness and to help us achieve things that we otherwise couldn't. Vulnerability is often viewed as a sign of weakness. Why do you need other people? But actually, I think it takes more courage to say I need help than for those who just try to make their own way.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, do you know about Hillsides? They do that city sweep project.
Yes.
So with one of the I can't go too much into it, but one of the situations, like Pastor Jim, he mentioned it to me. He says, hey, that thing you're having, it could be a city sweep project. And I was like, oh, snap. And then I even asked Nathan, I'm like, I think I do need help. And before I was, I don't know if it's my pride or something, or like you were saying, people are scared to ask for help. I'm scared to ask for help, but now I did need the help and I asked them. But, with my community, friends and all of them, yeah, they're willing to help. They're there for it. It'd be the same situation. If they needed help, of course, yeah, you're my friend. Of course I would help you. That's, we're part of that group. But I would think of it more like family.
Yeah.
And it's been great. I've been loving it. Another thing that caught my eye too. This is where me and Myra kind of disagree. The social media part. And I was reading on that. But I like how it's not like, at first, it's not like a bad thing. Because Myra has a different opinion. She says it's horrible. But I'm on that because, so I grew up in 1995. So what am I, like a younger millennial or an older Gen Z? I'm right there. I think I'm still millennial. So 1995. So I grew up when like the tech and the social media would start hitting. Like, I remember MySpace when in elementary school, and Facebook started popping up and same thing, Twitter, this and that. And when it started, I thought it was amazing because we're like, oh, snap. You don't have to be in person to communicate. We're still in person, but like if we're somewhere else, it's great, especially with family. Like that's how also me and Myra, we started still contacting because she was in Mexico. We were doing Facebook.
Yeah.
So that's how, we kept going and going, especially on online gaming because I love playing video games.
Nice.
I play with them. We get connected. But I guess I don't know if now it's more different. Still, now I think I'm old school. So I'm not really like into, like TikTok or this and that. I mean, I'll make the videos, like some of the clips, but I'm not in there scrolling.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it affects younger people nowadays. But what have you seen with that stuff?
Yes. So actually, chapter 4 is all about technology, social media, and its role in isolating us further. Because you were right. Social media in its early days was strictly about connecting with people. Like you got friend requests and you just saw the stuff that your friends posted, and that was awesome. But now, with how apps are designed for algorithms, and just there's so many things. Now these social media apps have way less to do with connecting with your friends and way more to do about how can I keep you on my app for as long as humanly possible. So they create different parts of the apps that are more addictive, that cause you to keep going in, right? They entirely invented the like button specifically because it hijacks your psychology and gives you a dopamine hit to keep coming back to it. That's why they did it. Because the more traffic they get on their site, the more attention they have from you, the more money they make. And it's disgusting. And so now it's shifted to a business ploy to keep us locked onto these apps because they don't care about your marriage. They don't care about your workplace. They care that you are spending as much humanly time possible on these apps. And so now between social media, because let's be honest, you go on Facebook or Instagram to maybe see a couple of things, you get 3 posts down, and then you see this reel that catches your attention. You spent 3 minutes looking at your friend's post, and then you spent 20 minutes looking at stupid reels. You
True.
watched 21 minute, and then you finally get off of it for 45 minutes. And nobody on this earth says, wow, I'm really glad I spent my time scrolling Instagram, TikTok for that long. Nobody. You always kind of feel worse a little bit, So between social media and, video gaming and all these other digital connections, and then you see it coming up here with Gen Z. Gen Z is the first generation to fully live in a fully tech-saturated social media world. And I quote this book by Jonathan Haidt called The Anxious Generation. If anybody works with teenagers or college students or young adults, you need to read this book. I think it is perhaps the most important book of this decade, because it just really talks about this idea. Like, we all know it. Social media and our phones are affecting us with the mental health epidemic in our relationships. And he goes deep into it and he talks all about it. But I mean, the main premise I pull out is increase screen time yields decrease face time. And by FaceTime, I mean space time, not the iPhone means of video. I have to clarify that. If you're spending more time on screens, you are spending less time face to face with other people. And therefore, that's going to yield lessened in-person social abilities, which then means you're not connecting with people in face-to-face in a relational way there. You don't pick up on good social cues. You don't know how to communicate adequately. And so you just stick to your technological means. And so you continue to isolate yourself and saying, I don't really want anyone else because what I have here is good enough. And here's the thing. I believe social media is a great supplement to our friendships. It adds some extra fun dynamics. It actually allows us to still stay connected with people from our past that we otherwise wouldn't. Obviously, like you and Myra stayed connected.
Yeah.
There's a huge win from social media right there, But it is a terrible substitute. And what's happening is people are, before like the 70s, 80s, 90s, kids, teenagers would spend so much more time outside the house and school in person with each other. Now it is increasingly less that teenagers spend time with their friends outside of the homes. Instead, they go home and they spend time on, gaming devices, social media, Snapchat, you name it. So they're still connecting, but it's not the same quality of connection, and that impacts our ability to relate in person, and inevitably it boosts up loneliness levels. And so that's why we see Gen Z in particular as the loneliest generation in our nation right now. 8 out of 10 young adults between the ages of 18 to 24 say that they're lonely at any given time.
Really?
That's nuts. Yeah, that's from a Cigna study. Sometimes it's 60%, sometimes it's 80%. It depends on which study you look at. But I think there's so many of these things that are pulling our attention away from friendships and having those in-person experiences. It's wild.
Do you think
it's wild.
Since it's Gen Z and they're younger, do you think it could also be because they're in that phase of their life? When you're younger, you're trying to figure stuff out. Or do you think, no, it's actually affecting them once they're adults? Like, what could happen?
Mm-hmm.
Would they just be like...
And that's why this is such a perfect storm for them. So, I mean, there's the heavy social media use, right? And just kind of growing up with that as the main mediator for their connections and human relationships. But then there's also the very unique life transitions that happen. Think about it. There are at least 3 major life transitions that happen between the ages of 18 to 28. You graduate high school and you move away to college. Okay. And then once when you finish college, you're moving away to another job somewhere. Some might be moving back home, but a lot of times you're moving away. But what's more common now is people are moving again for grad school. So then they go to another community in a span of just 3 to 4 years to get their graduate degrees, and then they start their job. So we're looking at transition from high school to college to grad school to workplace, and most young adults stay in that workplace for only 2 to 3 years before they move on to the next thing. So we're looking at 3 to 4 life transitions, moving to different communities between the ages of 18 to 28. And that's so hard and it's weird because especially in your undergraduate degree, your undergraduate program, that's where you're surrounded with so many amazing friends. So it's prime time to connect with your relationships and friendships. But then a lot of those communities get uprooted when you have to move again. And so it's just, so there's definitely a lot of transience that happens in your 20s that I think could allude to that larger demographic of being lonely.
What's your opinion now on not remote learning, but remote work?
I think it's awful.
Mhm.
First, I should preface, for me, I kind of like being remote because I can work from wherever. I was the kid in college where I intentionally sat in a different seat for every class because I like change. I like moving around. I don't like staying in one place. So that's fun. But I just don't think, I don't know. For me, I mean, this is the extroverted, person where I hate being trapped in a room, but I think there's a reason why you're so exhausted after having so many Zoom call meetings. Because your brain has to work overtime and trying to connect with a person through a screen than in person. It's specifically wired and has these gifts and strengths to be able to pick up on social cues and to assess the environment around you. And when you're talking at a screen while also looking at yourself in the bottom right corner, like it's working overtime trying to pay attention to the person in front of you. Talking to people through pixels is not the same as in person. And then when it has this mirrored image of you, you're also cognizant of how your hair looks, how am I positioned in the camera. So, whereas you and I, we don't have to think about how my hair looks because, all I see is you. But as soon as I get something up that reflects my image right back at me, so we're more exhausted looking at screens all day than talking in person. And again, it's that whole idea. It's coming back to that idea of like, I don't need anyone else. I can just work by myself at home. And then you're just not helping your friendship equation in your life by only being at home and isolated. Like you have to work doubly hard to make sure you fill up the connection meter in your life. And I think so many people have gotten so used to that. They don't even know that they're lonely. They don't even know the benefits that having good community in their life can bring because this is just the new normal for them. So I'd really love to challenge our people to get back into it. And I think that's why we're seeing more workplaces incorporate going back into the office more because we need collaboration and we need to be in person to get our best work sometimes, and I mean, those are big claims. I know we can still do great work over Zoom calls. I know there's all those things, but if we can be in person, we need to opt for that option when we can.
I want to go back into one of the things that you mentioned about, if I remember right, there could be a person with a big group of friends that they can be lonely, and I think one of the misconceptions, it might be because of the younger crowd now, that one of the misconceptions is, oh yeah, they have a bunch of friends, they're perfectly fine, this and that, but no, they could just have a bunch of people. Same thing. It could also be connected to that social media stuff, where people are like seeing, oh man, look, they have all this stuff, but you hear it with celebrities sometimes too. You're like, how can they be like lonely or feeling this and that? But no, like, you can't. I think that could be one of those misconceptions.
Yeah.
Am I speaking that?
Yes,
right?
for sure. Yeah. There's quantity of connections is not equivalent to the quality of those connections. You can have thousands of followers on Instagram. You can be amongst a bunch of people, but if you don't have a way to connect on that more personal level, it'll for sure bump up those feelings of loneliness and disconnection.
Yeah. And then there's nothing bad also having just a select few of friends that you just talk to, your buddies. I think that's perfectly fine too.
Yeah.
Because even before this, before when I was back home in Texas, well, for years I just stuck with the same people. Like, maybe that's why it kind of confused me at first before reading it, because I was like, why? I don't want to make more friends. But it's not about making more friends. It's about that, being lonely, because I have my select friends, and also most of them are like my cousins, because I grew up with my cousins and we hung out and this and that. But just having that select few, I'm all right. Now coming when I came here, completely brand new, and I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. But luckily, I found that select few, and I'm okay with just having that select few, especially when I talk about more personal stuff. I don't want to just go blab my mouth at everyone. So I don't know how Myra, because I know Myra before, she said, hey, you need to get more friends, this and that. But I'm like, but I have that select few. I'm okay with my select few friends. So I think that's one of those misconceptions.
For sure. Yes. Yeah. And I think, and again, like you don't have to be super close with everybody. Like we need kind of those 2, 3, maybe 5 people that know us more intimately. You kind of have that main group.
Let's go into that spiritual friendship, especially because this is brand new to me. I know I'm going to go into it, not too much, because I've talked about it with other in the past episodes. So funny enough, if people do want to know more about me, I go to Hillside a lot, and I'm really into. I do the Bibles. I love it. The Bible, all this stuff it's actually brand new to me. But I am not. I would say I am not a Christian yet. I'm actually feels like I'm getting closer for some reason. Did you know we did our first mission trip?
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, we did in February. We went to the Dominican Republic, and it was me, Myra. I took Myra and Victoria, and we went. It was just we didn't spread the word, because if I spread the word, I would probably accidentally deconvert people by accident. We were just building, helping like maintenance and projects, construction stuff, and it was actually. I'm gonna go to the friend thing. It was so amazing, Jake. Because it was just, I want to say, was it like 15, 16, like around that many people from church? And we bonded so well. It was so amazing. Like at the end, I even told them, I was like, because a lot of them say, oh, this is like an amazing team, this and that. And I said, you know what? I actually disagree. For me, it felt like family. It did. And then, after that, now I'm more connected with them and more, what's that? I don't know that word, but just more connected. So it's, I don't know. But that's why I want to talk more spiritual, because stuff with church and everything, I've been growing more closer, not just to them, but to Jake. I think I might be getting closer to God.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. And I won't go too much into the Dominican Republic. I already talked about it with Robbie and them. After the Dominican Republic, I don't know what's been happening. I don't know. Well, okay, this is what they tell me. It's probably the Holy Spirit. I'm still kind of skeptical, but I feel this stuff. I'm reading even like reading your book, because the 2 books I've been reading, this and the Bible, because I kind of read into it, but I had that mindset of like trying to figure out, this can't be true, this and that. But now I'm like understanding it, even with like when I have some problems, I read some of the verses or whatever. I'm like, oh snap. And then now this one, I'm getting a little more off topic, but yesterday? Yeah, yesterday I ran. I don't know what it is, Jake. And yeah, I feel open to talk about it. I don't know what it was. This is the second time this happened to me. I don't know if it's my phone, but usually I have something playing, and then halfway, it's the second time it just kind of just cut off my phone. For some reason. I don't know why it just cuts off. But I'm running. I'm having that feeling again. And then on my mind, I have like, I'm not trying to go, hopefully I'm not crazy, but I'm starting to think like, some spiritual stuff, and I'm talking, I don't know what it is. And then I started like tearing up when I was running. I don't know. That's why I haven't told anyone about it except now.
And all your listeners.
Yeah, now all my listeners know. So they'll see me. They're like, why is that guy running and crying? I don't know in the morning. But I don't know what's been happening. But that's why I want to talk about that spiritual friendship stuff. Because now I don't feel alone, especially I've been doing more praying and understanding stuff about Jesus. I don't know. I'm going on. I'm too much on a tangent.
So much good stuff.
Yeah, but let's go into
So spiritual friendship. So I believe all friendships are spiritual, but not all friendships are spiritual friendships. So because by nature, by what we believe, that we're not just physical bodies. We have souls, we have spirits. Like there's this part that can connect with the divine, with God Himself. Because when we go back to the creation narrative, right? God creates Adam and Eve to be in relationship with each other and with Him. That is the definition of, the best human experience we can have is when we are connected with other people who also believe in God, because we have that vertical relationship with Him and the horizontal relationship with others. And you just connect at a deeper level. There's just, like you said, there's something different about the caliber of those friendships when you share a mutual pursuit of Jesus and each other. There's something different about it. It brings it to a depth of your soul. And so in my hunch is because since we're wired for community, even at the spiritual level, that's why we kind of have this stronger sense of community with our brothers and sisters that we worship with on Sunday mornings, or especially when we do ministry, like for you, it was this mission trip. For me, some of those friendships that really developed on a deep level was when I dedicated my summers as a college student to working for a camp ministry. Spreading the gospel to kids and putting on amazing fun activities. Like you just get so close to those people, and there is no other friendships that define it. And what St. Alred talks about is that the friendships that are founded on that mutual pursuit of Jesus are the greatest joy you can experience in this life, because they fully know you and you're pursuing the goodness of God. The point of spiritual friendships aren't to make you feel good like modern worldly friendships do. Spiritual friendships are meant to make you good. There's a difference there. There's a difference between them making you feel good and making you good. They're making you a virtuous person. They're helping you to grow. You're learning the fruits of the Spirit. You're learning what it means to serve one another and to be served by them. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Allred even goes on to say that when we pray together, our spirits are involved. Our souls are intermingling with the presence of God right here in our midst, And even I think if you want to bring your friendships to the next level, even just becoming aware that Jesus is gathered right here with us. That's something that Allred talks about, he says, you and I, and I hope a third, Christ is in our midst, And how does that change the dynamics when we sit down with our spouse or when we gather with our group of guy friends and, we're going out frisbee golfing and we acknowledge Jesus is right there too. Like it enhances the time that we are with each other. And then and to really drive it home, the end goal for, our discipleship efforts is so that we might become more like Jesus. That's the goal in the Christian life. We want to reflect more of his image. Well, if we are who we're with, right? If you start reflecting the same actions, you start saying the same things, you start doing all the things like the people you surround yourself with the most. If you are who you're with, then you become more Christ-like when you're with Christ-like friends. You see? Because you're both pursuing Jesus together. You basically are stirring each other up to pursue the same things of God when you're all serious together. So that's why so many churches really emphasize joining small groups or finding all of those other communities. One, because we need community, we need friendships. Two, the depth of those friendships are much better because we're pursuing the deeper things of God together. And three, we can actually really spur each other on to become the people that God has designed us to be according to his word together. So yeah, that's a bit on that.
Yeah. Something that's and that I do recommend people, community groups. Do you remember Pastor Dan?
Yes.
So
of course.
Yeah. So they're the one that kind of started all that stuff. And I remember him telling me, hey, you want to be part of the community group or be in a community group? And in my mind, I'm like, no, I don't want to. I don't need anybody. Yeah, I don't need anyone. I'm fine. But he's like, I'm going to sign you up. Okay, sign me up. And then we got we are the community groups with Ryan and Molly Mollenkamp and all these wonderful people. A lot of them are actually grad students. But it's been amazing. And then yesterday, first time in the text for the community group, they said, hey, let's do a fast. Let's fast. Well, I was like, sure. How hard can it be? I've never done it before. And
it sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. I went a whole 24 hours without eating, and it was horrible. Anyways, so we go to their house. We went with to the house of Brock and Tori and them, and they're in there worshiping. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh, okay, well, I thought when they said they're gonna do worship and then eat, I thought they were joking because it was also April Fool's. So, but when we went in there, they're singing, and I was like, oh, they were being serious. So I should tell them that. And then, we get there, and then, they're worshiping this and that, and everything's so calm. And funny enough, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's also, I'm just not used to it, especially me or people my age. A lot of these college students, they're really into that Christian life, but also in a positivity, because also they're great, amazing friends, and they're very positive, and they don't hopefully they don't do bad things, but they also they influence me too, so I could be a better person. One thing I'll go a little off topic on the fasting. So I don't know, have you ever fasted before? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if there's like a specific set of rules, but someone was saying that, you fast and then you're supposed to be praying or something like that.
Yeah. Like kind of the whole idea, you fast from food as a way of just kind of reminding yourself like your sustenance does not come from human hands or does not come from food. Your sustenance comes from the Lord, right? So then when you deprive yourself of food, it kind of becomes like every time you have that pang of hunger, it's a reminder of God provides for me. He is my sustenance. So then, the whole idea is if that's kind of the principle for why we fast, then when you would eat, instead of eating your food, you take 30 minutes and you just spend some extra time in prayer during that time.
Oh, so that's why the whole thing. So I didn't know about that. I thought we were just like not going to eat. And throughout the whole entire day, I'm hungry thinking about food. Me and Myra took our hour lunch, which I'm like, why are we taking a lunch if we didn't eat anything? We're watching YouTube videos. But we're watching videos of, food the whole entire time. And then now it makes sense because I thought we were going to get there and eat. And then they were doing the, worshiping. And then it was all very, very long prayer. But throughout the whole time, I'm like, man, dude, I'm just so hungry.
Are we going to eat anytime soon?
Yeah. But I forgot. I didn't know about it. I was supposed to now it makes sense. I didn't know the rules. Or not the rules, but I didn't know you're supposed to kind of think. I kept thinking about food the whole time. But now I do.
You and me both, man. It's so hard. It's such a hard spiritual discipline.
There we go. Because I honestly thought it was going to be more easier than that. I swear I had the text.
It gets easier the more you do it.
Okay.
For sure. The first time's hard, but get this, in the scriptures, they fasted at least once a week. At least once a week, if not more so. It was a regular spiritual discipline. It was assumed that you do it. We do not do well with fasting here, especially in the States.
Yeah.
We love food, man. I love food so much, too much. So yeah, that's definitely a practice that I think we could bring back.
So Jesus did it for 40 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 40 days, 40 nights.
Mm-hmm.
But he also drank water, right?
Surely. Yeah. Okay. That's what we hope.
So he did it 40 days and okay. That makes sense. So, but they were talking about it yesterday. Still, Jake, I'm still new to the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm gonna tell you, I said it before. So, I'm so new that I didn't know. Have you seen that show, The Chosen?
Uh-huh.
So, was the first season or something when they're getting all the disciples or apostles? We were watching. I love this show. It's amazing. I watched this show, then I got into the Bible.
Uh-huh.
It's supposed to be reversed. There was a part.
Hey, still got you to the scriptures.
Yeah,
that's a win, right?
It worked. There was a part where it shows Judas. Jesus gets Judas. I'm like, oh snap! And then Myra was like, "Yeah, that's the one that's going to betray Jesus." I was so new. I did not know about it. So I even said, "Wow, thanks for the spoiler." So,
that's amazing.
So that's how.
Wow. But you're learning the story.
Now I am learning the story.
Yeah.
So yesterday they were saying, if I remember right, that he fasted. Yeah, Jesus fasted for 40 days, 40 nights, and then he was tempted. Was it like that? Or
yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he did that, and then how does that story work? What was the point of who was tempting him?
The Satan or the adversary was tempting him, kind of bringing these different visions of, the majesty and the power that he could have if he just simply gave in and followed, the enemy of God instead of going about God's ways and his purposes. So it's kind of a way of trying to subvert God's plan, God's mission to save humanity by trying to get Jesus to bow down to him instead.
Oh, okay. So that's why I should write all this stuff down. So that's why one of them, if I remember right, correct me, Jake, when he's saying, I think he's tempting him saying, oh yeah, if God loves you or something, he can make you food or something like that.
Yeah, then just tell God to turn the stone into bread if you're that hungry, And Jesus replies back with, but the scriptures say man does not live on bread alone or something like that. It's kind of a way of trying to fight back those temptations with God's word.
Yeah, because I remember reading that part and I was like, okay, that makes sense until I started fasting or yesterday. And I was like, I don't know. I feel like I would love some food right now.
I'd love some stone bread.
Yeah. But I get the idea because once you're in heaven, everything is it'll be perfect. Everything will be amazing. I bet we don't have to worry about food. Mm-hmm. But now I'm understanding it, why people fast. And actually there's other cultures that do the same thing, get that. Because food is like a necessity or a need. And it's something that you have, giving it up is one of the hardest things. Well, yeah, because you need it. You could die without it. But I think I'm understanding it a little bit.
Yeah, it gets better and it gets easier the more you do it. So keep going, Jose.
Okay. But don't do it every day, right?
Don't do it every day. Okay. You need to eat something.
All right, good. Because I'm starving right now. But all right. But we'll get into it. Now, Jake, about the book. What is there? Do you have a favorite section, or what do you love about it?
Oh, every chapter to me is like one of my own kids. They're all near and dear to me in their own special way.
Well, you do have a favorite, right? No,
I do have a favorite kid. It's all of them. They all are my favorites in different ways. So, oh my goodness, so many. I think chapters 1 through 4 are really compelling because it really talks about the loneliness epidemic, right? It really paints a picture of wow, there's so much going on, and it really helps us identify that issue. But then chapters 5 through 10 are all about trying to depict what spiritual friendship is and how to take it to the next level. I love chapter 8 because it really talks about the importance of your local church. So the whole idea of being an unchurched Christian, I believe in Jesus, but I don't need to go to church. That's just not a concept in the Bible. That is a product of our individualism kicking in here, where you can just stream your sermon and listen to music and not go to church. No, we need to be a part of the church. That's where a lot of these spiritual friendships start, so that's really compelling. Oh, in chapter 7, whom you should befriend, I have this little tool called the friend zone matrix. The friend zone matrix is kind of this. So the story of the matrix is that it came out of when I was friend zoned by a girl I was interested in dating back in like 2017. Like I just moved to Sioux Falls and, I was getting to know this girl and I asked her to be my girlfriend. She said, Jake, you're cool, but I think we just need to stay friends. And I was so down on it. And I was like, why am I so down about being put in the friend zone? And I'm like, the friend zone, I think there's something here. And so I kind of pieced this idea of how, there's different levels of friendship we can have between, kind of friends in the public space, very shallow. You really don't know anybody there. And then it works all the way from the social, personal to intimate space. It's just a way to categorize the depth of our friendships. And then that's along the x-axis. And then the y-axis is the kind of the spiritual quality of our friendships.
Yeah.
St. Alred categorizes those friendships as carnal friends, people who are like, these are friendships founded on vice, they're sinful, they're really bad and toxic for you. Worldly friends, they're kind of mid-tier, they're good, they're fun, but they're more about just making you feel good. There's nothing much to them. Then spiritual friendships are those friends founded on the mutual pursuit of Jesus and that are just really great. So you can actually map out like the spiritual quality and depth of your friendships there, and kind of gives you an idea of, wow, if I do want to grow in my relationship with Jesus and with others, I don't have anybody who's close to me in the personal and intimate spaces. So you can, so that's kind of a helpful tool. I also really, really love chapter 9. Chapter 9 is all about the importance of vulnerability and confession, of how to finally just like to take the masks off and to be comfortable with just detailing the deep parts of our lives that are hard to talk about. If you want to deepen your friendships, we need to talk about the deep parts of ourselves. Because when you do so, that builds trust and connection, and that's what just creates that stronger bond that I think so many people in our culture are looking for. And then lastly, chapter 10 really outlines a special way of how we can regularly practice vulnerability. Because let me tell you, Jose, like it's talking about my deep, hard struggles is not easy for anybody, And so what if we actually have a small group structure in our churches that specifically emphasizes question asking and trying to talk about the hard things we're going through and where we need help seeing God in the midst of our situations. And so it puts that at the forefront. It's not about studying a book or even scripture. It's about expounding on the hard things in our life and having our friends gathered there help us see where God is. And it draws us closer in connection because we're regularly sharing about those hard things and growing closer to God because we're actually acknowledging his presence in the midst of all of it. So it kind of outlines a way of how you can do a small group structure on that. So I love all of them. If I had to pick one, I think chapter 9 is my favorite.
Okay.
I think chapter 9 is my favorite.
See, this is what I'm loving about the church so far. Because also, like, if we were just by ourselves, me and Myra, which is fine, I like it. But also, you won't have like different perspectives. One, I'll give an example. We I'm not saying we argue all the time. We, every couple has like disagreements. But for example, and I'm gonna ask you, Jake, tell me, because Myra's gonna get bad. But has this ever happened to you? I always ask every single husband, has this ever happened to you when your wife is saying something and then I don't know, everything's just blank, like you don't remember it? Does that ever happen?
Yes.
Okay.
Or when I'm distracted and then they say, did you hear what I just said?
There you go.
And you look up from your phone and you just have that look of horror and you're like, oh, crap. They ask you a question. You're like, oh, yeah, sure, I can do that. And then they say, what did I say? What did I say?
Those are the words.
It's the words.
So
and
yeah.
I'm like, no, I didn't. Can you say it again? Yeah.
It was one thing that me and Myra, because we were working on it. But now I'm like, okay, it's a common thing. It's not a problem. Well, okay. Well, because she would say like, I'm horrible at listening, which I say I am. And then when we start talking with, our friends and couples at the church, I ask them the same thing. They're like, no, that also happens to me, apparently to every single husband. So now we find out, I tell Myra, look, it's not just me. It's all of us. We're all
of us. Yeah. We're all terrible listeners. Yes.
But we have, you can find similarities, but it's kind of cool because you got like another perspective saying, oh yeah, this isn't just, I'm not the only one dealing with this problem. every single husband has this problem, but
Yeah.
stuff
Oh
like
man. Well, to swing that around, and I actually talk about this in chapter 10, one of the greatest gifts we can give our friends is an attentive listening presence where you say nothing but just ask clarifying questions to help them expound on it. Because I think especially, because all this, about sharing the deep parts of ourselves is really good, really helpful. But then what about when we're the friend on the other side? So Jose, you're pouring out your life to me, you're talking about all this stuff. I think we, as helpful as we want to be, we want to jump on that and immediately respond by giving advice. Oh, Jose, like, yeah, you have a hard time listening with Myra. Well, here's what I would do with you, or here's what I would do in your situation. Well, maybe they might want your advice, but they're not really asking what you would do if you were in their shoes. Like, they just want you to listen. And I think sometimes we rush too quickly to solve their problems because we are uncomfortable with it. We want to solve it. We want to be helpful, truly. But I think sometimes we need to learn just how to sit in it with our friends and just be like, man, yeah, Jose, that really sucks. How can I be a support of you? Help me understand how that's really changing your perspective of God. Help me understand more about that, because like when we actually respond with more questions, I think that's even more helpful and actually communicates that you're more interested anyway, because you want more information than what was just shared. You're not rushing to just give your two piece. You're not rushing in to just solve their issue for them. And even what if instead of trying to give them your advice of what you would do, you ask them questions? Well, what can you do? Because it turns out we actually respond a lot better to our own advice if someone helps us come up with it ourselves. Because I could give you advice of what I would do, Jose, but that might be what you want to do or what is best for you. So if instead we can respond with questions that expound on what they're talking about, but then empowers them to come up with those solutions, they're more likely to follow through with that advice because they came up with it. So it's counterintuitive. It's more helpful when we ask questions for them to help themselves. They're not helping themselves. We're helping them kind of come around to that, if that makes sense. But the only way of how we can ask good questions is if we can really listen well and are okay with them talking more in some of those instances,
Hey, you should be a counselor. You should be a pastor.
I should be a pastor. Yeah.
Are you going to do another book? Or is there anything?
I would love to keep writing books. I have a couple of other ideas of how I can kind of keep expounding on the spiritual friendship content.
Yeah. What are the topics?
A couple of those. One, like, we're going to continue to practice just the spiritual direction groups I talk about in the book and just the spiritual friendship stuff in our church. So one book I want to write to other pastors or church leaders is how you can implement a similar like small group structure. It's very logistical, practical. No one will probably read that. But then a third book that's kind of really a niche topic amidst this. The working title would be Pastor, You Need Friends. Because it turns out pastors, as much as we talk about community and the importance of having friendships, we really struggle with having friendships ourselves.
Really?
It's just the nature of our role. There's so many weird dynamics about it. We're cultivating a flock where everyone needs to connect with each other, but like, where do we fit in the midst of that? So I really want to, that would be a huge research project that I'd want to do to really understand the nature of pastoral loneliness and steps to that, so those are kind of some topics around here that I want to do. But then I also have ideas of where, I work so hard on writing sermons every single week to talk about for 30 minutes once a week, and then it's done. I want to be able to go back and kind of create like sermon collections books, basically trying to find a bunch of different series and sermons that are relate and put them all into different entries. And, like all the sermons where I ever talk about money and generosity, put that in one, or any of the ones where we do a series on like the strange stories in the Bible, put those together and kind of just rework some of those sermons into books. So then like every couple of years I can release a sermon collection or something like that.
That'd be cool.
Just so that way it puts it puts that content from Sunday morning into the hands of our people and others, for it just to be another spiritually formative read as well. So
would you do a movie? That's how it works. I think I'll book it a movie.
If someone wants to do a documentary over my content, or maybe, maybe I can go back and create a short film about, the time I had my mental breakdown during the COVID-19 pandemic and what all we did. If someone wants to pick up that project, turn it into a movie, man, all power to them. I think there are more compelling storylines out there, but that'd be fun.
All right. Looks like we're hitting that hour mark. So we'll be close to finishing. So where can people find, where can they get the book at?
Yes. So you can find it on Amazon. So if you have an Amazon account, just head over to head over to Amazon, search for You Need Friends by Jake Thurston. You'll be able to find it. It looks like this for those who are on the video. The Facebook video, or you can head over to www.youneedfriends.com. You can find links to the book there, as well as a number of other stats about, the loneliness epidemic and other resources. I'll have links to all my other teachings I've done on the topic, podcasts I've done on the topic, other resources that you can gather there. You can join my newsletter and stuff like that on that. So you can search for it on Amazon or head over to youneedfriends.com. And we can go from there.
Sweet. Any future things coming up? I know you guys are going to do that Good Friday service too.
Yeah. So we have a United Good Friday service coming up. This is a chance for us to try to get a number of different churches together for that important service, kind of just remembering Christ's crucifixion. So that's on Friday, April 18th at 6 p.m. at the Vermillion High School. This is our third time that we're doing it. So we're excited about that. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome to that. And then really the next big thing coming up is we're hopefully going to have a community center here for Vermillion coming out in May or June. It'll be soft launch there. It'll be done by June, but we're really going to roll it out in time for the fall semester. So we're hoping just to bring people in together for that. And it's going to be awesome. So stay on the lookout. We'll have to do another podcast.
All right.
Maybe from the community center.
I'm down for that.
So that'd be great.
Sweet. I think we got everything, but I do want to thank you so much, Jake.
Thanks for having me, Jose. It's always a pleasure.